Hello, and welcome to another edition of Exclusive Interview, coming to you from the studios of 84 TV Radio, Abuja, Nigeria. My name is Stanley Bentu. Now, how many times have you heard it said that if you want to go into business, the first thing you need is capital? Well, that might not be correct because according to people who have business experience, capital is the last thing that you need. First and foremost, you need knowledge about yourself and about your industry. But are Nigerian tertiary institutions actually providing that knowledge for young graduates before they go out into the job markets? Well, that's what I would like to find out. But before we do that, let's have a look at this report.
Today, Nigeria is still confronted dismal economic indices, high unemployment and poverty. Despite the Nigerian economy's advertised impressive growth rate, reportedly about 8% annually in recent times, the economic impact of entrepreneurial development is relatively low. Empirical studies have not been able to find strong statistical evidence for the relationship between entrepreneurship and economic growth and development due to the fact that there is no specific data. The role of entrepreneurs in economic development involves increasing per capita outcome and income, initiating and constituting change in the structure of business and society. This change is accompanied by growth and increased output. Being relatively labor-intensive, enterprise creates substantial employment opportunities at low capital costs. The industrial future of Nigeria depends critically on the twin pillars of a stable macroeconomic environment based on a foundation of proactive partnership between government and the public sector. More profits mean more taxes, which enables governments to provide basic amenities. Stimulation of indigenous entrepreneurship in developing country like Nigeria is not only desirable, it is essential. But where do we begin to teach entrepreneurship? This is what we seek to find out on today's episode of Exclusive Interview.
Welcome back to Exclusive Interview. Joining me in the studio right now is a professor of business administration from Crown Hill University, and his name is Professor Murtala Awodu. Professor, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening.
Good evening. The pleasure is mine.
So, speaking about entrepreneurship and young people in Nigeria, interestingly, Nigeria has a very young population, which should be productive, but unemployment, in fact, according to an NOI poll, which was conducted just a couple of years ago, a lack of jobs is the biggest concern for young Nigerians. So how did we get here?
Well, talking about how we get here, or how we got here, we will trace it back to the issue of our curriculum that remain stagnant for years, while the dynamics of jobs and work continue to change. What do I mean by that? If you look at the curriculum of academics in Nigeria, particularly the tertiary institutions, they have remained almost the same as what they were in the 60s, in the 70s, even in this century. But the way work are carried on has changed because of technology, because of innovation. So the products that you're turning out are not matching the needs of the industry. And obviously there is a mismatch.
So is that where the concept of unemployability comes from?
That's it.
So we have graduates coming out of universities and
that are not fitting,
education.
they are not fitting into the demands of the industry. And that was what brought about my coming up with the fact that Center for Entrepreneurship has to be established in Nigerian universities. It actually started in 2003 when I left banking in 1990s and then joined academics in 1999 specifically. And in 2003, I saw that there is a huge gap between what we were producing in the university and what the industry requires. So, researching into what brings about that gap, we saw that there are so many things that are lacking, so many skills that are lacking, in the curriculum that the industry requires. When I first got my job at Guaranty Trust Bank in 1991, despite the fact that we went through several process of interviews and all that, the first thing they did was to take us to a training school for about 3 months. So we were all taken as, green, and then they had to tutor us. So when you look at it, the industry already identified the fact that those gaps are there. If you enter any reputable organization, they will have to retool you, right? Because there's a gap. You can't see a graduate of banking and finance that will enter into banking industry and will be able to fit in. You can't
no industry
exactly. You can't see a graduate of marketing that will get into a marketing organization after graduation that will be able to fit in because of those gaps that we're talking about. So that's what makes them unemployable, right? So if you really must fit into the system, the curriculum had to be worked on. So I came up with the concept of creating Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Lagos State University then. But it did not scale through because of, the constraints of the university, the Senate. They don't really understand what you are talking about. There is a convention about how things must be done, and you are trying to change that. So Kwara State University was created in 2009, and because I'm from Kwara, I decided, to pay a visit home and meet with the new VC that was appointed for Kwara State University. Now the Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja here, after his tenure in Kwara. And after exchanging, what I have concerning entrepreneurship with him, he said, this is what I'm looking for. Because I was bold to tell him that this is a new university that is about to start, and if you are going to do it the same way other universities have been doing it, then you are going to fail. So, together, we started the Center for Entrepreneurship. I was also the head of the Department of Business and Entrepreneurship, at the same time the director for the Center for Entrepreneurship. So the university started from inception with a Center for Entrepreneurship. And what we did was to create a board for that center that has 65% of members of those board from the industry, successful entrepreneurs, who we sat down together to let them tell us what is it that they're looking for in a graduate that is not there. So that was how we came up with the curriculum of, entrepreneurship for Kwara State University to fill those gaps. And to the glory of God, that center became the first center for entrepreneurship in any public university in Nigeria, because it was 2 years after that the NUC decided to ask all Nigerian universities to create centers for entrepreneurship. So what we are saying in essence is that our curriculum is not as dynamic as the world itself, and you are producing graduates to go and survive in the world that is different from where they are coming from. So definitely it's a mismatch, and the problem will manifest.
Now this is, I would like to talk about the pre-tertiary level, but before we do that, let's focus on the tertiary level itself. One of the biggest challenges is we study in academics to become, let's say, good engineers, good architects, good drama artists, but one of the things that's missing is you never learn how you can actually make a living out of this course. It's just assumed that this is something you stumble onto after you graduate from school. So does every department in a university have, or do you recommend that they should have some sort of entrepreneurial training that teaches people how they can actually make or earn a living from this course, whatever course they may be studying?
Specifically, that was what the creation of the Center for Entrepreneurship at Kwara State University did. Irrespective of what you are studying, you cannot graduate from the university without passing through the Center for Entrepreneurship. So it doesn't really matter whether you are studying BA Arabic or French or Islamic studies or engineering or even business. You pass through the center to prepare you, for the society, to prepare you for the realities that you are going to face out there, and to make you ready, to fit into that society, because that was part of the gap that we're talking about. That is not there. We're creating an ideal environment in the university when the society is not ideal.
So we have, what are some of the things that you learn at the institute? Is it basic business management?
No. What the components of what we put together had to do with creativity and innovation. You start with what we call the creative process. We have to challenge you to actually discover yourself as a person, because you have certain things hidden in you in terms of skills, maybe based on your growing up and all that you must discover your strength. And that strength or passion is the best thing that you can build an enterprise on, because it's not common. Whatever you have as a strength, another person doesn't have it. And if you build an enterprise on your strength, your passion, your interest, it will succeed. Just like somebody who is passionate or interested in a lady, is the interest, the passion that keeps you going. Not that she does not have her faults, but it is that thing that you see in her. That's it. And that's it. Okay. So starting with that creativity, you come up with an idea that is pitched and then is approved. Then the second is you must create an enterprise, that will nurture this idea or take the idea to the market. So it's not enough for you to create something, it must be something that people actually are ready to pay for. So that is the aspect that is very crucial, for us.
All right, Professor. So basically you were talking about moving passion to creativity and then to production.
That's
marketing.
Once you have a creative idea, an idea is not enough. It has to be something that you can transform into an innovative product, because it is an innovative product that will actually solve the problem of the society, and the society will be willing to exchange for a price. So the idea that you have created has to be transformed into an innovative product. There must be an enterprise created, to take that product to the market, and you now get value for whatever you have created to solve a problem, So we structure the center in such a way that it starts from idea generation to enterprise creation. So you have all our students, after the second module of the program, actually creating businesses, creating enterprises, and registering those businesses, So that became something that was even noticed by the Corporate Affairs Commission in 2011, that there was an upsurge of business registration in Kwara State, and they wanted to find out what was responsible, and they traced it back to the university.
Professor, I would like you to hold that thought, because I would like to hear more about the interplay between your institute and the Corporate Affairs Commission. But for now, we will take a break. Don't go away. So much more to talk about. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I am still here in the studio with Professor Muritala Awodu, Professor of Business Administration, and we've been talking about youth entrepreneurship. Well, are Nigerian youths unemployable? And there must be a reason for that, which is what we broke down. We unpacked that in the first part of the show. But before we went to break, you mentioned that the Corporate Affairs Commission witnessed that from 2011 there was an upsurge in registration of businesses. How did that interplay come about, and how successful have these businesses been?
Well, the part of the curriculum is that you have to practicalize what you have been taught in the classroom. And you have created a product, an innovative product that is acceptable. You also have to create an enterprise. So we insisted that every student that have created a product must register a business, must create a business. A business is also like giving birth to a child. And when you give birth to your child, you get a birth certificate. So if you have given birth to your business enterprise, you go and register it and get a certificate of registration for it. So it became a compulsory thing for all the students that have passed through the center. After the second module, there are 5 modules, of the center. After the second module, they must register a business. So that brought about an upsurge in the number of businesses registered in Kwara, that was noticeable in 2011. And the Corporate Affairs Commission discovered that there were more of students of the Kwara State University. About 90% of the businesses registered in a particular year were students of the university. Moreover, we hold what we call Entrepreneurship Week every November of the year, trying to celebrate the Global Entrepreneurship Week, along with all the other countries of the world that does that. So there is a day that is set aside for interfacing with the stakeholders in the business place. So we invite the Corporate Affairs Commission, the Standard Organization of Nigeria, the NDIC, the banks, people that you are going to actually need to be able to survive as an entrepreneur, so that they can interact, with the students. And that was how they got to know that, okay, this is where this have been coming from. And when they saw consistency over a year, growth in number of businesses registered every year, the headquarters in Abuja had to write to the university commending the effort of the university. That has been the tradition. I have left the center after 4 years of my tenure as the director, the first director of the center, passing it on to another person who has done his own 4 years, and passing it on to another person. So the smooth succession has been there, and the program of the center has, survived over a decade now. I've moved on to add value to what was created at Kwara State University with what we now have at Crown E University, which is the Center for Enterprise and Human Capital Development. The program in Crown E University is an enterprise creation and leadership program, because we saw that the aspect of leadership was missing in the first program that we created in Kwara. And we have to integrate that aspect of leadership and corporate social responsibility into the program that was created at Crown E University, where I am now.
And it's very interesting because I think in the past we've always produced graduates who would need jobs, but your approach is creating graduates who will create or give jobs to
that's exactly what it is. Crown E University is a private university, so the constraints that I had at Kwara State University, I don't have that in Crown University. The first set of graduates of the university are graduating this year, and they have all established their businesses, and we have even brought all of them under one umbrella of a company called CHU Class 2020 Limited, an incorporated company. So all those students are shareholders in that company, right? And the company is already pursuing the areas of interest identified by those students as a limited liability company that is incorporated, and the university is promising each of those students a startup grant of ₦1 million. That's a private university. That cannot happen in a public university. But in a private university, because they really have to go, the extra length to make sure that these students who have been able to create ABC, we should be able to support them to transform those ABC into commercial ventures. So that's the addition that's been placed on whatever was started at the public university.
In your experience, Professor, how has this changed the way the young people view their country? Because I think that if you look at Nigeria as a place where you can add value and be rewarded, you will see the country as a place of opportunity. But if you see the country as a place that is supposed to take care of you, then it becomes a nightmare, and you would go through great lengths, even smuggling yourself to another country because you believe you
see,
don't have
the point is the education system gives false hope to our young ones based on what was there before, forgetting the fact that then there was a wide gap in terms of, the colonial masters left, creating a gap, right, for people to fill. So the universities, as they produce, the job is waiting for them because there was a gap.
That gap, absolutely.
Now, over time, the gap was filled, and such gaps were not existing again. And we continue to live as if those gaps remain. Continue to give them those false impressions. That's why I say when things change in the real society, the university also need to know that things have changed and they need to change along. And that's exactly what is missing, right? Those false hope that is given to the young ones is what gives them that sense of that mentality of the government or the society really needs to do this for us. And that is changing with the kind of people that we are producing. Looking at problems in the society and not seeing them as problems, but seeing opportunities in those problems to create enterprises, add value in solving the problems and make money. Because the truth of the matter is, if you continue to dwell on those problems, the problems will not solve itself and the problems will not go away. But if you look at the problems differently and see the opportunities in the problem, then you'll be able to transform and solve those problems. And in solving those problems, obviously you make money. When you add value, you make money.
So would you, obviously this is something that you would recommend to be scaled up, perhaps across all of our tertiary institutions?
Yeah, the NUC recognized that in 2011, and that was why they wrote to all Nigerian universities and asked them to create centers for entrepreneurship. They went further to make sure that TED Fund even funded, the creation of those centers for entrepreneurship. That was a good step. But beyond that is the fact that we saw that, the secondary schools, that we feed the university, because by the time you are getting into the university, you are probably a bit formed and it's difficult for you to change. So this thing was extended to secondary school by the Educational Council, and entrepreneurship were introduced at the senior secondary school level.
Which brings me down to the secondary level. The concept of the 6334 system was that those who probably were not too academically sound would move on and acquire skills and probably form the productive force in industry.
The vocational side of it.
So what's your assessment of that?
I think that area, the fault is both of that of the government and the parents. The government is not funding the technical and the vocational institutes as much as they are funding the university.
And interestingly, there are lots of opportunities there. Because
the opportunities
are more about skill.
Exactly, than the university itself.
Yes.
And what you see most of the universities now do is even turning their centers for entrepreneurship into a vocational center instead of the center for entrepreneurship that originally they were meant to be. There's a difference between skills acquisition and entrepreneurship. They are not the same thing.
They're not the same.
But what most of the centers for entrepreneurship are doing is skills acquisition rather than entrepreneurship. You need to train the mindset of somebody to be able to gather resources together, identify a problem, solve that problem by creating a product. So it doesn't necessarily have to be able to do the job himself, but he should be able to get those who have skills to be able to do the job, get the job done, and then make money out of putting all of them together as resources, both the people that have the skills and the other resources required in terms of capital, technology, and the rest. That's an entrepreneur. But somebody who train in acquiring a vocational skill is just like a laborer. So there's a difference between the two. But the problem is that there is a knowledge gap. You create a center and then somebody is supposed to be the director of the center and he does not have the knowledge. And we identified that quickly in 2012. The Center for Entrepreneurship of Kwara State University saw that the directive of NUC is going to create that problem, and we started what we call Directors Conference. We invited all the directors of the Center for Entrepreneurship to come to our university, and we had a Directors Conference. TED Fund, NUC supported us in organizing that Directors Conference, and it has become an annual event because we saw that knowledge gap, and we brought everybody together with people from the UK, the US, resource persons coming to train those directors so that they can actually know what they are asked to go and do. And the TED Fund, the NUC still have a lot of role to play in this area.
Well, here's one question I simply have to ask. When someone hears that an individual is leaving Nigeria's banking industry to return to academics, the question that comes to mind is, are you normal?
Well, that was...
Why would you want to return to the academics? But this is exactly what you did.
That was the question even my wife, asked. Because how are you going to pay the bills? You are leaving a job that will pay you, let's say, ₦1 million monthly, for a job that will pay you 100,000 monthly. It doesn't make sense. But like I said, I had passion for academics, and I can say that, well, it was just by divine arrangement, because I was actually about transiting from banking to the oil industry, and I needed a reference letter from my university. So I went back to my university to get my HOD to sign a reference letter. And when I got back to my university, what I saw, was pathetic in terms of the level of decadence, So when he signed that reference and was escorting me out, and I started complaining, what he told me was what actually turned me around. He said, I was the best student in my department. I am in the private sector. The second best student is in the private sector. The third, up to the 10th, are in the private sector. So why am I complaining about the quality of lecturers that are there? Because we are in a hurry to go and make money, and we abandon academics. That some of us really have to sacrifice to come back here. Otherwise, it is these same people I'm complaining about that will train my children. That was the turning point.
So were you able to pay your bills?
Well, I was, because I came into academics not minding the little sum that will be paid to me, but I immediately also started running my consultancy. And that consultancy became something that paid my bills, because through consulting for one organization or the other, I even make much more than what I was earning when I was in the banking industry.
Wow. So you killed two birds with one stone.
That's
adding
it.
value to society.
That's it.
And making money and improving your businesses. Professor, it's been a pleasure having this chat with you.
The pleasure is mine.
And we wish you the best in all of your endeavors.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
We will be right back. It was a particular pleasure speaking with Professor Awodun, because we were talking about money. And money, they say, answereth all things. But money can also be very shy. If you don't know how to treat it right, it is very quick to run away from you. So our tertiary institutions, our universities, have to find a way to provide knowledge to our young aspiring graduates on how they can make a living for themselves from the courses that they study there. And that's it for this edition of Exclusive Interview. Until we come your way again next time, thank you for stopping by.